Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my backyard and welcome back to my series on building my new trailer. If this is your first time here, I will leave you a link up in the cards and down in the description to a playlist that contains all the videos that go along with this build so you have easy access to all of that. So last time we got the cross members here installed into the frame, we got the rotisserie thing built, we got this thing moved off the sawmill and put onto rotisseries, and now I'm ready to keep going. The first step today is going to be to do a whole heck of a lot of welding. One of the nice things about having this thing on the rotisserie is that I can turn the entire frame into whatever position I want to make welding easier. So all of my previously vertical welds are now going to be done in the flat position, which look a lot prettier, at least, you know, for me. My vertical welds are definitely nothing to write home about, but my flat welds look a lot better. So this first little bit, again, it's going to be a ton of welding, so I'm going to get to it. I'm going to be burning through a lot of electrodes this morning, and I'm just looking forward to kind of zoning out, getting the stinger going, getting the electrodes burning, and getting things going. One of the things I'm going to do, though, is I will be rotating the frame as I work, so I don't end up with a whole lot of heat concentration in these parts and end up warping my frame. It's not as big of a deal like compared to when I did the bandsaw mill. The bandsaw mill bed needs to be perfectly flat because it's a flat reference surface, but if this trailer isn't perfectly flat, it's really not the end of the world. But I don't want a crazy goofy trailer. I prefer something pretty close to flat, so I'm going to do what I can to kind of distribute the stresses of all the welding. And the nice thing about that is I get to play with my rotisserie, which is a nice bonus. So I'm going to get to it, and I will see you on the other side. We'll take a look at doing some reinforcement towards the tongue area, which I have skipped until now because it's going to be a lot easier to do it now again. That's on the rotisserie. So that was a lot of welding, but I do have to say I really enjoy this kind of side of things where you can just sort of zone out and do the actual welding, which the welding part is the part of this project type stuff that I actually enjoy the most. The rest of the time with all these fabrication projects is all like cutting and grinding and fitting things together. So when you actually get a chance to just sit down and do all the welding, that's quite nice. So the entire frame is all welded out, all nice and strong and good to go. So now I'm going to start on some reinforcement areas. We're going to start down here with this little tongue fold area, get that welded in, and also patch that gap there in the fold. So I'm going to light up some more rods and get that filled in, get those welded all out, and then we can do some more reinforcement with some gussets, which should be kind of fun, back to cutting and fitting stuff back together. Should also be interesting because, you know, like the outside of the trailer frame is now about 7 feet up in the air, so I'll be welding the outside of this tongue thing on a ladder, which, you know, makes things just slightly more interesting and entertaining. So it's all patched back up and everything else is welded here. One of the nice things I like about the thicker wall tubing is it has a bigger radius here, so it gives you a lot more room to get weld in there. So these are all 2 passes right now, and yeah, just makes it a little bit nicer to be able to get a little more weld in there. So the next thing here is going to be to add this reinforcing plate, which is going to further link the frame to the tongue, and it's also going to reinforce this connection up here. So I'm going to go ahead and prep the area for this plate. I'm also going to prep this plate as well. I'm going to put a couple of holes on both sides so I can plug weld it essentially to the tongue as well as the frame, and I can make those holes pretty quickly with the plasma cutter, since I don't really need these to be perfect circles or anything like that. It's just a utility thing to be able to get more weld surface between this plate and the pieces of the trailer. So while I'm getting those reinforcing plates installed, let me tell you about this video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators with thousands of classes in design, business, and more. I've been on Skillshare for a few months now, and currently I'm watching Gary Vaynerchuk's Getting Started with Wine class. Learning about and sampling wine is something my wife and I like to do together, and this class gives us further information on the different characteristics of different wines and the proper ways to taste them. And if you're familiar with Gary Vee, you know he has a very distinct and fun delivery style, which is something that Lindsay and I both really appreciate and enjoy. Skillshare is giving away a free 2-month unlimited access trial to my subscribers who click the link in the description box below. After that, it's only around $10 a month. So join more than 7 million creators learning with Skillshare, join groups to learn with like-minded learners, give and receive feedback on projects, and speak with others with the same interests as you. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the build. Now with that tongue connection reinforced, now I can go ahead and take care of this gusseting up here at the coupler area. So it's going to start by prepping the area and welding in this gusset, just like we did on the bottom side. And then I'll also add a few little tabs or ears or little tiny gussets that'll connect this gusset to the coupler mount. So with all that welding and reinforcement out of the way, now we can move on to adding a deck on here. Now last night before I went in, I used a grinder and flushed up all the welds on the top face of the deck. That way there's no additional materials there that's going to interfere with the decking going down. When I did those welds, I was pretty careful not to put down too much material. That way I wouldn't have a whole lot to grind back, and luckily there wasn't a whole lot there. So I guess I did a good job of maintaining how much material I was putting down. I also went over everything with a wire wheel to get rid of all the slag, so the top face of the frame should be good to go for decking. However, there's one small mistake that I need to fix before we start doing the deck. So I installed the rotisserie mount on the back side here. I totally forgot about this little bit of clearance I'm gonna need here. So the decking is gonna come all the way to the back of the back member, which means that this plate is now in the way and I can't get my decking in place. So before I actually get to doing all the decking install, I gotta cut this plate back a little bit so I can actually get access to that back radius of the rear tube. So it's gonna be angle grinder time. I'm gonna go ahead and cut a piece of that plate off, and not a whole lot to it other than, you know, that plate supporting the entire trailer frame right now. but there's a lot of other welds on there, so I'm not particularly worried about cutting this off. Okay, so now I can finally start working on getting the deck on here. The deck is going to be 10 gauge steel, and I got that in a 4x10 sheet, so I'll be able to lay the 4-foot length across here and go down. I have 2 sheets, so I'll have 1, 2, and then 2 partial sheets, which should do the front area. Now, one thing I want to do is make sure I cut these things to the right length so they lay on top of the frame correctly. So the overall width of the trailer from outside frame to outside frame is 80 1/4 inches. This radius here is 3/8 of an inch, and I want the decking to sort of land right around here so that I can put the weld right here and have it be nice and seamless into this radius. So if I take a 1/2 inch off of each side, that'll put the edge of the decking 1/8 of an inch from the radius. So I need to cut my decking down to 1 inch short of 80 1/4, or 79 1/4 inches long. So these sheets are each 225 pounds. So I'm gonna cut them while they're still here on the trailer. And because they're all nested together, I can cut them both at the same time. So I was just gonna back the trailer back down to the new trailer and just drop these sheets off onto the new one. But I have so much stuff in my driveway right now, which I don't really feel like moving. So instead of backing this trailer down the driveway, getting it close to the new one, I'm just gonna move these sheets back there with the mini skid. So for whatever reason, the spacing on these sheets isn't working out perfectly. The spacing is correct for the front 2, but the last one is a little off. I think I might have the rear of the trailer a little too far forward. Luckily, it's a pretty easy fix with the sheet stuff. I'll just trim a little bit off the end of it with a saw, and everything should fit perfectly. So I ran out of daylight again last night, and I think we've also run out of the warm spell we were having. It was quite warm the last few days, and now we're back to normal November weather, so it's like 20 degrees today, nice and frigid. So the 2 plates here are tacked in place on the top and on the bottom. So today I'm gonna get started. I'll do a few stitches here on the outside and then get the plates installed to cover up that front area, get those tacked in place with some small stitches, and then I kind of stitch from the top and bottom so that way I don't have to store in these plates and have them be all goofy. I think for now I'll just go around and do sort of like the outside and underside stitches, and then later on, once this thing is down on the ground, I'll get on top of it and weld all the seams closed. So I end up with basically a nice, smooth, seamless deck. The blade on the saw is totally gone. When these things go, they go quick. They go from cutting to not cutting like instantly. So I guess I get to drag the plasma torch out again. So I have most of this thing stitched in place on the top side here. It's tacked on the bottom everywhere. I think it's time to roll this thing over and start doing some stitches on the underside. Ugh. I also ran out of welding gas, so I have to go buy some more of that. So let's roll this thing and finish getting this deck on here. So the next thing I want to take care of is something that I've been kind of putting off for a while, and that is to finalize the installation of the hangers. So I have just the backing plates plug welded to the frame, and then I have the hangers tacked to that backing plate. I haven't fully welded them on yet because I want to make sure that everything is exactly right, because it would be fun to remove those. So one thing with these hangers is that they're a little bit wider than they are going to be kind of in the end once the springs are bolted in place. So there's some flex up here for them to fully close. So what I'm going to do is install the full suspension assembly with the springs and the axles, tighten everything down. That should tweak these hangers into their absolute final position, and then I can go ahead and solidify those connections. So that took that extra flex out of there, and I guess in retrospect the only place that really matters is up here where I'm going to weld this hanger directly to the tongue. The rest of them, it doesn't really matter a whole lot, but at least I feel a little bit more reassured in this whole process. So now, much awaited finale to the hangers. Let's get these things welded in permanently, and then we can move on from here. So that's going to do it for this one. And this is pretty exciting, I guess, because at this point we've essentially created what is a standard trailer, and from this point forward it's going to be all about the sort of specific customization features that make this a truly custom trailer. So next time we're going to get started with the winch mount and the chain tray thing, which will go up here, and we'll kind of go from there. So thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If any questions or comments on the trailer build or anything back in the shop, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.